Welcome to the community briefing. The 19th of January, and it's amazing. There's only a few more days left to January. We're rolling into the year 2023. We're glad you're here, and we got folks still streaming in, so that's fantastic. My name is Gregory Sneed, and we welcome you here to the community briefing. We've got a great guest for you today, Mr. Darrell Brown, and he'll be joining us momentarily with some awesome information about what he's done, but more important, sharing that with us. Some great information for the community. My name is Gregory Sneed, and I have a company, Lifesaver Financial Services, where I help clients keep more of the money they make, and I do that through life insurance solutions, coaching, and financial literacy training. Because I firmly believe that when you feel better about your money, you feel better about your life. So if you and your money would like to get back on speaking terms, I can connect you and hook you guys up. So now, without further delay, it's my honor to welcome to the virtual stage the queen of our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Good afternoon. Good morning, guys. Glad to have you. Glad to have our great guest today, Mr. Darrell Brown. We saw him last year, so it's good to check in with him. Miss Sarah Harris is here today. Colette, hello, and everyone else that has come to visit. Emma, our regulars. Thank you guys for coming out. My name is Crystal Mitchell. I'm the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, and the community briefing is an inspiration of mine. I felt that we needed to have an outlet during the pandemic where we got firsthand information, because for whatever the reason, we tend not to get it until it's too late and we can't react fast enough. So that was the original purpose of the community briefing, was to make sure we knew where all the money was. But it has grown into this phenomenal platform that is bringing us together so that we can meet our leaders and stakeholders and the people that are sitting at the table where decisions are being made about us, and they have input, and we can give them our input, and then they can take it back and make sure that we're represented. So that is the purpose of the community briefing. It is a platform powered by Recycling Black Dollars and the BBA, the Black Business Association. And today's presentation is a part of the Black Business Association's anti-hate campaign associated with our weekly. So we are very pleased to present this today. We're also financially sponsored by Wells Fargo, as well as Southern California Edison, SoCal Gas. And our newest and latest is PCR, Pacific Coast Regional Center. I think they have a new name, so I'm sorry if I did not connect that. And so we want to welcome you guys. We have a fantastic team that helped put the community briefing together. Mr. Gregory Sneed, Mr. Stephen Turner, who's our producer and reaches out to everyone, and we so appreciate him, and Miss Robin Billups, and she right now won't be here today, but she said, Darrell, do your thing, and she's switching over to a different clinical trial, and it's taking some time, but she should be with us soon. But she's doing well, so continue to pray for her. And with that, I want to thank you guys all, and I'm gonna kick it back over to Gregory Sneed.
Thank you, Crystal, and a few more joining us. So welcome to the community briefing. So there are 7 acknowledged wonders of Los Angeles. We are about to hear from the 8th, Mr. Darrell Brown. Darrell says that the best measure of success is the amount of people that we can bless. Darrell is the founder and CEO of the Rewirement Project. That's the TRP. Yeah, you know me. It's an enterprise where mutual engagement, guided by principles of change, transformation, transition, and personal evolution, are shaped through the lens of an executive coach, management consultant, business strategist, and personal success planning. Darrell prides himself on being able to highlight the cross sections of mindfulness and self-mastery by being a metaphorical mirror, but not a mechanic. He's an effective leader who believes in high achievement and always takes place in the framework of high expectations. Before establishing the Rewirement Project, he was an accomplished senior executive in the banking and financial services industry with over 47 years of experience. So he's not a rookie. He's no Johnny come lately. And he was in the banking industry. He was responsible for strategic and tactical and profit and loss management for hundreds of retail branch facilities. And he, at that time, was one of the highest ranking African Americans in retail banking. He was a key liaison for government relations at federal, state, and local levels. He was appointed to the executive sponsors for diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. And he represented a lot of that for U.S. Bank. He is the recipient of many honors and awards. And most recently, in fact, just in November, Darrell was presented on behalf of the President's Council on Service and Civic Participation and the Office of the President of the United States, the President's Lifetime Volunteer Service Award. Bravo, bravo. And he sits on a lot. He does a lot of things. He's a vice chair, not just on the board, vice chair of the Music Center, on the executive board of Bet Cetic, on the executive board of the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, and he has been finance chair and treasurer of the LA chapter of the Urban League, board member emeritus for Junior Achievement. I could go on and on and on, but we want to keep this within an hour. So, but Gerald does a lot of different things. He's a native of Los Angeles. So he is the uptown, downtown, midtown, and around town Darrell Brown.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's always good. First of all, it's good to see you, Greg. I always enjoy our dialogue. Crystal, you do an amazing job with community briefing. Let me also say that to Sarah Harris, I've been a big supporter of the Black Business Association for a lot of years. I think Skip Cooper, the visionary, the founder, always wanted to make sure he maintained a legacy. And I think he's found a great leader in you, Sarah, to your board of directors. I know Roz is listening in, and all the great work you're doing, your programming, your messaging, your communication has gone to another level. I think it's a cornerstone of what we can learn from any small business or organization. You're just doing an amazing job. Let me also say, none of this can happen without sponsors. Having been a sponsor, having been on the grant committees, I know how important it is to cultivate those relationships. So too, I see Ms. Delphine Pruitt from US Bank, and I know Wells Fargo is involved, Natalie Cole from our weekly. I mean, I can go on and on and on with all the sponsors. So I just want to say thank you very much for giving me a platform to sort of share my story, provide a perspective, provide some broad insights on a number of themes that was presented to me. I often say I don't have the answer, I have an answer, because I want to make sure that we keep perspective from everybody on the table as part of discussions that's going to make a difference for our community. Let me just sort of set the table, because I've got a lot of information. I've got some notes to make sure I stay within this window of this hour. Greg mentioned this Lifetime Achievement Award, and I want to give you some perspective that I think will set the table. Many of you know that the President of the United States oftentimes presents to a lot of celebrities with the lanyard, their Freedom Award. You see it in the news all the time over the years. There are other awards that are granted by the President of the United States. It could be in military, it could be in academics, and I was just humbled and blessed to be the recipient, nominated and granted this incredible award by some of my friends that I've known for years, that know my work over the 47 years in my outreach. Many of you are on this call right now. I see your images. It just touches my heart that you paused to carve out some time to be part of this. So I thank you for your time, all of you that are listening in. I have a responsibility not only to give you your time's worth, to make sure I bring value, hopefully within the next hour. So thank you very much for that. When I was in South Carolina, where the award was actually presented, it was presented to me by the mayor of South Carolina. Many of you know the history of South Carolina. I had never been to South Carolina, but I know its history. I know its support for the slave trade. The old African slave mart is still there. It's now a museum. The award was presented to me in the oldest, the longest running city council chambers in the country, going back to the 1700s. The art was adorned on the walls with original portraits of George Washington. And when I was there, I was happy to have my friends there, Barbara Perkins, maybe you know, who was one of the nominees, Dr. Lulu and Carl Balton, my sister Regina, and my brother-in-law Jeff. There were so many folks that were there, but I walked into this facility from the 1700s and I looked up and there's sort of a boardwalk. And in this boardwalk, I looked up and I see this very ornate, sort of railing. And I thought about the history of that moment because one of the folks that sponsored this event was Dr. Kim Long, who is a historian, researcher. And when I looked up, I had to change my speech because in that moment, I realized I was standing in a place where people, humans, people from Africa was bought and sold as slaves. I don't like the word slave, they were enslaved. And in that moment, I can't even explain it. It was an unbelievable feeling. There was a degree of anger, there was a degree of frustration, but then again, it was overcome by me standing in the light that someone that looked like me stood in a place to make a difference, to be a recipient granted by the President of the United States of America. So I want you to understand that moment as best you can, because we've all been faced with something very similar. But I have to tell you, my ancestors, the blood cells that I have running through my veins, I know there was a celebration, there was a party that was taking place that someone that looked like me could stand there, and bring value and pride and history to those that were enslaved. We all have a story. Everybody has a story, and you can't have a story without a villain. So I wanted to share that perspective because as I entered coming out of Kwanzaa into Martin Luther King week, I started to think about some of his journey. I started to think about some of the things that he stated, some of his quotes, one of which is life's most persistent, urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Think about that question. For me, to paraphrase it, Tom Bradley, he said, Darrell, everybody can be a public servant. I heard a similar message from John Mack. I heard a similar message from Richard Amador. Heard his daughter's on the phone right now. I heard a similar message, from Danny Bakewell, Yvonne Burke. All of us can be servants. So I share that story because there's a sense of pride that I have to stand in the shoes and the wisdom of those that engage my passion to sort of make a difference. And many of you on this call can do that. In the work that I do, would I be willing to have a videotape of my day-to-day work, my deeds, my activities, and could I use it as a training video? I want you to think about that. Could your day be videotaped? You use it as training video for the role that you play in the spirit of servitude. The King's question. For me, it's a live. Particularly in the area of small business. So they give you a perspective. We can't have a solution. How much time do we spend on the problem or how much time do we spend on the solution? So hate and racism in this country has been a toxic undercurrent in our lives for hundreds of years, and it shows up in many forms. It's not a topic that oftentimes we talk about. Sometimes we can become complacent. It's not part of our day-to-day discussion. When we're faced with it, we kind of wish it would go away. We become what I call hopeaholics, meaning that we wish that this reality would just emerge into non-existence. So I think it's time, and that's why I love what this call and the themes that was presented to me by Sarah, to talk about what our strategies are going to be, particularly in the Black and Brown communities. If you do not address the hate in any of its forms, you might as well write a book called The Adventures of a Bystander. It's really that important. I have lived in my 47 years what I would call the glass ceiling. We all know what that is. Sometimes, it's the glass staircase, which is oftentimes broken by those that don't have the power. Sometimes we're affected by what I would call the sticky floor, that we're so good at what we do that they will hold us back because it will prevent those above us from looking good. So it's really important that we learn the strategies to reverse this reality. And we can't be emotional. We can't be superficial. We know how to fight. But I think about Dr. King. I think about his nonviolent approach to things. It did make a difference. I mean, the passage Civil Rights Act. I think about the passage of the Voting Rights Act. I'm old enough to have lived those days. Some of us have been blessed to be in high-ranking positions. Some of us live in nice neighborhoods. Some of us have a lot of titles behind our names. But regardless, we're still viewed as a racial group, and we are labeled. I was talking earlier with Crystal about the racism and the bias that exists among women, gays, the Jewish community, the Asian community. Hate exists in this country, and it has to be addressed. So I want to share something with you from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Claude Anderson. Some of you might know that name. He wrote the book Powernomics. I want to read a quote that I read often. And this is what he stated. He's a brilliant man. You can Google him. He's unbelievable, particularly interviews he's done on the Breakfast Club. And he says this: we have further handicapped ourselves by some of our own beliefs and behaviors. A dogged pursuit of integration is one example. In so doing, we have destroyed our communities. We've diluted our numerical strength and become dependent on others. We have been further handicapped by our inability to practice group economics in a capitalistic society. We have no Black economic structure to solve the problems of our community. Oftentimes, the question of many Black professionals are why? Why does that exist? Sometimes the answer speaks to the symptoms of unemployment, of drugs, of decline in family values, no business, increased crime. But the root problem, as he states, and I agree in our community across America, is race and the unjust distribution of our nation's wealth. And no wealth, there's no power. We have limited business, and at all levels of the government, we are not present. And let me give you some statistics. I was reading something long ago, and let me just transition to some things I've learned about small business, particularly since BBA is being highlighted here today. 1 out of every 3 to 4 white households owns a small business. 1 to every 5 Jewish households owns a small business. 1 to every 5 Asian households own a small business. And these are businesses that have an employee. 1 in 35 to 40 Latino households own a small business. In African America, what do you think it is? African American community, what do you think it is? It's 1 in hundreds. Tell you why that's important. If you own a small business, what can you deduct on your taxes? Greg, what can we deduct on our taxes? You're an accountant.
I don't want to say publicly, but everything.
Exactly. If you own a small business, you can deduct everything. And so I don't care if it's a car you drive, the truck you drive, the clothes you wear, the art, the desk, the technology, you can deduct everything. If you don't own a small business, what can you deduct on your taxes? This is really important to understand. Many of you, all of you, is the only thing we can deduct is the interest on their homes and the tax consequences they mean. They're even capping that. So the game is already rigged. So it is really important for us to understand the invisible hands right now that are in your purses and your wallets. It's called taxes. It's called the invisible hands of interest costs on debt. It's invisible hands called obsolescence, which means that things get old and need to be replaced and we don't have liquidity. It's important for us to understand how important it is for us to understand how the majority, the white population, had a strategy and a plan to suppress this, and we're still living up under it. Now, I'm not one to pass blame, because I believe in equal rights, but I also believe in equal results. Dr. King addressed that issue. He said, Dr. King stated, we must never forever conduct our struggle on the, we must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. Here's what's interesting. I was reading something the other day, Dr. King, Dr. Bernice King, his daughter, his youngest daughter. She said, please don't act like everybody loved her father. Because I was looking at and listening to a lot of folks that don't look like us quoting Dr. King, but we know the story. She said, don't act like everyone loved the father. Dr. King was assassinated. There was a poll in 1967 that said he was the most hated man in America. So when I listen to the quotes, they do it for a moment, treat it as an event. They talk about what this might mean to justice, but they still hate. So I'm proud that Dr. King lives with us because we carry our history with us. But we need to make sure that when we face hate, we cannot get hysterical. We must be like Dr. King, become historical in terms of how we respond to the issues that impact our communities, that affect the minority communities. And many of you do that work. It's not easy. There is a risk. Dr. King took the ultimate risk. But if we don't take a risk in addressing these issues, then we risk more. That's my belief. So let me just give you some perspective on some of the solutions that I believe might make sense as we move forward. One, having calls like this, making sure that we have unity. I'm a big fan of we the people. That's embedded in our Constitution. I believe in collaboration. I believe in team. I believe in talking to many of you. I see Pam Yulee. I wouldn't hesitate to talk to Pam Yulee. I wouldn't hesitate, to talk to Cynthia Amador or Greg Sneed, or Joe Roseanne, or my friends over at PCR. We all come together in different moments. And here's some of the things that I just want to highlight for us to take this moment, not just once a year because it's Martin Luther King Day or Black History Month, but take this moment and turn it into a movement. And the way that happens for us to understand our agendas, our priorities, and not to just understand it theoretically, but to activate. Here are some of the things. Understand that real wealth is portable, which means it's knowledge. All of us have to become students of understanding the facts, understanding the data, so we can act differently, but we can create the Black Wall Street. We have to become educated in areas that we aren't comfortable with. I'm here to tell you that the status quo is the enemy of progress. Many of us don't understand the value of that knowledge. We're stuck. And I would challenge you to read the books. We got artificial intelligence, we got AI, we've got virtual classrooms. You'll be able to put on a pair of glasses almost and have a teacher beamed into your eyesight to be taught. You can use the restroom and it will pick up your urine and they can tell you and send it right off to your doctor so they can analyze, how your body is functioning. I mean, the technology is gone berserk. I am a cancer survivor, and I can tell you that being part of UCLA and the research, they have the cure for cancer. You won't see it for years, a lot of testing, but really it's going to be an economic issue. The fact that I had access to the best and the brightest put me on a special list because I was known, but I always thought about those who didn't have that kind of access, particularly in our community. So we have to become knowledgeable on all the things that impact change. And we have to manage at the speed of change. We have to think at the speed of change, and it will never be this slow again. So understand that real wealth is portable. Our job is not to teach, but to help people learn. They look the same, but completely different. Number two, take care of your own, and they will take care of you. Three, successful people are professionals and entrepreneurs. 47 years of banking, professionals and entrepreneurs. And for those in corporate America, it's okay to be an entrepreneur. Because I never did follow the procedure. I'm just, if it's not broke, break it. Am I right, Cynthia? If it's not broke, break it. You know, and I see my friend Kevin. Hey, buddy. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Hey, you know, you're telling it like it is. I'll stay on you and cheer you on.
So we have to be willing to take the risk. I'll talk about capital in just a moment. Develop verbal confidence. We have to be able to tell our story, articulate our thoughts. You know, I was taught as a young man the most powerful symbols on the planet Earth. My mother asked me, what are the most powerful symbols? What are the 26 most powerful symbols? I said, I don't know, Mom, the cross. She said, that's one, but her point was, it's the alphabet. You can reposition those symbols and create a masterpiece that tells a story that's engaging, that's inspiring, that gives details, specifics on how to move forward. Become verbal confident. 5, this speaks to some economics. Be selectively extravagant and prudently frugal. You know, I was thinking about inflation the other day. I was having a conversation. He was, oh my God, inflation. They're still blaming inflation. They're blaming the government. They got something called shrinkflation. Have you bought a toothpaste, tube of toothpaste lately? She had shrunk. You go buy some beef, you know, cook some hamburgers, the pack of meat has gotten shrunk. I mean, inflation, shrinkflation. So if companies are beginning to shrink things so they can minimize cost, so they can be more profitable, does it make sense for us to do the same as individuals? I mean, how many of us have magazines that we subscribe to that come to our home every week and we don't even read them? I mean, you know, how many of us buy things that may cost $3 a day? That's a lot of money. $3 a day times 30 days in a month is $90 times 12 is over almost $1,100 a year off a $3 daily expenditure. We've got to find ways to cut back and be more efficient. I'm not going to wait on the government. You know, I mean, I believe that, you know, that new wealth is happiness. But at the same time, you know, for us to maintain the lifestyle we deserve, we've got to be learning to be more efficient and be prudent about how we spend, what we spend, when we spend, and be selective in the things that you want to do that brings value. Here's another one. Take pride in individuality and encourage creativity. Encourage creativity. That's where that right brain really gets going. That's why I love the arts. I love the creativity from the musicians or the ballet or those that can rap, those that Amanda Gorman who can write a poem. I mean, I love it. So we have to fire up the right brain to make sure that we encourage, that we promote imagination and creativity and get our kids off the assembly line of routine. That's not where growth happens. 7, be psychologically driven to prove something. I believe that those of us in the community have to feel comfortable in owning our leadership. I'm psychologically driven this way. I don't know why. I've been like this since I was a kid, but I own my leadership. I own the fact that this brand here, you know, is making a difference, you know, that's engaged his employees, that gives back personally and through the platform that I have, that gives me the opportunity to say yes, you know, to Sarah Harris and to Greg when I get a phone call. And if I don't have the answer, I'm going to ask for help. That's another one. Don't be afraid to ask for help. My gift is the fact that I'm comfortable with the things I don't know. Part of being smart is recognizing the things you don't know. Another thing, you know, let's get comfortable with FaceTime. You know, we got caught up in social media. Ain't nothing social about social media. I need to shake Lawrence Yule's hand. I need to have a sit down with my brother. I got to sort of, you know, give Steve Turner a hug, who behind the scenes makes this possible. When I got his email today, I need to see Steve Turner every now and then so we can get the nuance. You know, that's important to us, to balance social media with FaceTime. It's something that we've got to do. It's not easy in today's environment to walk the walk of diversity, equity, access, inclusion, and to feel comfortable with it, to be bold with it. I don't have any fear. You know, I'm in fourth quarter of my life. I ain't got nothing to lose. And I think we got to be able to feel what risks are we taking? The ones that we create in our head. I'll talk about that in just a moment. You know, and don't be fooled by the marketing. For those of us that travel outside of the country, they have a whole different perspective of the United States. A lot of us don't realize we're living in a bubble. Turn on Al Jazeera, turn on some of the other stations, turn on BBC. You'll get a different perspective about what happens in this country. You know, all of us are programmed by advertising and branding, how much time and equity. You know, so I want to make sure that we understand the importance that we have a choice of what comes in our brain, so we can mitigate and eliminate the footprints that we don't want there. And who's responsible for that? Let me transition into my work as a CEO of the Rewirement Project, and then I'll turn it over to Q&A. I started the Rewirement Project after banking, after 47 years. Someone asked me, said, Darrell, what are you going to do in retirement? They said they can't imagine me sitting down on a couch and going to retirement. I said, well, no, it's not retirement. For me, it's rewirement. Just another word for change, transition, transformation. It's just another word for change. Because every time we have an opportunity to listen to someone else, to read a book, is the moment in which there is rewirement. It's the moment in which things are going to take place. So my job today as an executive coach or a coach or business strategy or some commercial real estate development is to make sure I understand the role of what I offer my clients is how to be a mirror, not a mechanic. I do have some answers. I do have some tools. But my job is to make sure that we teach people to take that inward journey. We sort of mastered the universe. Now we've got the metaverse. We have yet to master the innerverse. We've got to be very comfortable with the kind of voices that come into our head. Here's a question for you. Are your thoughts, are they really your thoughts? Are your thoughts intentional or are they unintentional? The comments I'm making now is intentional. But there's a whole lot of thoughts in my brain that I didn't put there that came from my subconscious. Darrell, you're not going to be ready for this call. Darrell, you're not going to have more than 2 people on the call. Darrell, why are you even doing this? I might be thinking about something in my brain that was happening when I was a kid. Why is that stuff there? You know, and we can control that stuff. We all have these notions that pop up where fear emerges, procrastination, complacency, doubt. So our responsibility is to learn how to manage those thoughts. We have the ability. That's what makes humans different, is that we have the ability to make a choice to say, I'm going to control those thoughts. Personally, I give these thoughts names. I have Freddie Fear. I have Danny Doubt. I have Annie Analytical. I said, you guys got to sit on the bench. You know, I've got Oliver Overthink. Sit your ass on the bench. Excuse my French. I'm sorry, Crystal. Sit on the bench. Where's Billy Bold? Where's Patty Positive? I give them male and female names. We've got to learn. Smile when you're faced with something, because your subconscious is not going to know that it's painful. I know these are broad generalities. I'd have to go do a deeper dive. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm somewhat a behaviorist. You know, I do a lot of work in this particular space to help folks know that we have a choice in how we deal with hate, you know, how we break through the glass ceiling. Whatever comes into our mind, we have a choice to respond in ways that will make such a difference. We focus on events in our brain every day that we have no control over. We're obsessed with the politics, the economy, the weather, the opinions of random strangers, you know, and we believe and act as if it's real. It's just in our brain. It's not. So we've got to get to a point we understand those choices, that we can't spend time just in our headspace arguing about things in our brain that's outside our control. It's a complete distraction from your gift and your ability to make a difference. A couple other things and I'll get out of here. I always talk about the level of commitment when we act. And I love saying this, and it's called the levels of commitment. Whatever we decide to do in business, whatever we decide to do, you know, in our personal lives, you know, what level of commitment do you have in small business? What level of commitment do you have to create personal wealth? What level of commitment do you have to bring value to the BBA? What level of commitment do we have to tell people about community briefing? What level of commitment do we have, to sort of self-assess and sort of enhance our self-development? What's the level of commitment? First level is, do you think about it? Is that a level of commitment? It is. How about the second level? I'll try, I'll do what I can, I'll do what's expected. That's where most folks land. I'm interested in people that will do whatever it takes. The fifth level of commitment, to do whatever it takes. Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, Mother Teresa, Maya Angelou, Jackie Robinson. I mean, whatever name we put, we know who these folks are. They have books about them. Become a student of success. So I just want to leave you with that. I want to give you one more quote, and I'll close and open up to Q&A. It's from Dr. King. May it not be that the problem in the world today is that individuals, as well as nations, have been overly concerned with the length of life, but devoid of the breath, its breath. But there is something to remind us that we are interdependent on each other, that we are all involved in a single process, that we're all somehow caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. Therefore, whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. So when there is hate, we must address it in any of its form. The greatest gift we have is the gift of choice. I happen to have great faith, and I believe in the gift of salvation, but I also believe in the gift of choice. So the secret to success for the business owners on this call: buy low, sell high, collect early, pay late. There's some other variables, but I'm happy to sort of just respond to any questions you have. I hope I've stated some things that disturb you, that cause you to think. So Greg, I'm coming back to you, and let's tee up some questions. Whatever comes through, I'm prepared to sort of make sure that I can provide an insight, and we'll just go from there.
Say those last ones again: buy low, sell high. I mean,
buy low, sell high, collect early, pay late.
That's it.
I have a question. This is Yolanda Williams. I have a question. May I ask now?
Sure. You're already there, so go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to know, Mr. Brown, do you know anything about the new Black Wall Street market?
I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, in fact, I'm working with some groups. I know there's one up and running in Atlanta right now.
It's in Atlanta. They are clients of mine, and I will be going to Atlanta to visit them sometime within the next probably 8 weeks or so. And I do know Matthew Hampton, and he's been on my show. So they need all of us to support them. And Mr. Allen wants to open Black Wall Street markets all over the country.
And he's not the only one. By the way, my family's from Georgia. My sister, Dr. Regina Spates, is on the phone right now. She goes there often. She's sort of been my eyes and ears to watching this project. I know the Urban League here in LA is looking to do the same. And let me give you a perspective. The model that I think about growing up in the city is Koreatown. How many of you know about Koreatown? It wasn't always Koreatown.
Right.
And they have almost every type of business within a 5-mile radius. The dollars circulate 23 times before it leaves. And when it leaves, it comes right back. The dollars in the African-American community doesn't circulate even one time. Here's the other thing too. I used to create funds supporting PCR, and back in the day, VDC, and obviously with Joe Ruzan, Vermont Socioeconomic Development Corporation. Cynthia Almador had programs, to do the same thing. We would always find a way to create an opportunity for the Black and brown communities. And there was a topic about helping someone, an African-American business, who is going to open a business in San Fernando Valley, which is great. Problem is, his clients didn't look like us. He would have been wealthy, he would have got his capital, he would have done well. But beyond the individuals, we got to be smart about how we think about community. And Koreatown is a model. I think what I've seen in Atlanta, it reflects that. But we've got to have multiple opportunities, because 85% of the property is owned by folks who don't look like us. So either you're going to own the land, you're going to build the land, it's going to be developed. So, and it has to become a destination. You got to do all those kinds of things. The businesses have to have access to capital. And by the way, Access to capital in and of itself is not the only solution to successful Black business. We need to understand labor law. I'm a founder of something called the Small Business Legal Academy. So you have Black Wall Street, there are other moving parts. You got to make sure what kind of structure you're going to have. You're going to be an LLC, an S, a C. You got to make sure that there's everything is not just getting the retail doors open and become a hopeaholic that people come in to buy your product. But we also have to diversify and not just think about a physical location. But there's no lines on the map. When you look at the map in reality, there's no lines when you cross from Las Vegas into California to Las Vegas. Technology is going to also allow us to expand where we can learn how to develop commerce for people of color, not only the physical location, but we need to expand it internationally. Because at the end of the day, knowing the business exists without a customer, oftentimes we miss that barrel. So we'll put the brick, we'll build a brick and mortar, but who's going to walk in those doors? Who's going to buy the product? Who's going to buy it again? Who are they going to tell? So we've got to make sure that we do more than just think about opening a physical location, but we want to make sure we identify the customers that's going to, do business with these businesses and have some sustainable revenue. And we have to do business with each other so we can get all boats to rise. So I have been watching that model, Yolanda. I'm quite familiar. I'm so happy you brought it up. So I appreciate that question.
Darrell, can you share us a little bit more on Rewirement? I know that you and I chatted about that, and I physically went through Rewirement in preparation for video conferencing, and I've got 2 computers and 5 monitors, and I had to physically go down there and rewire. But what is in sort of 60-second or less, what is Rewirement? Where is that going?
I think Yolanda teed up Black Wall Street, which means there's the design, there's architecture. Rewirement is nothing more than the principles what I would call psychotecture. How do we manage the psychology? How do we overcome those moments? How do we become self-aware, internal self-awareness? How do you feel emotionally? How do we manage our purpose? How do we manage our calling? All those kinds of things. What disturbs us and why? What's our purpose? What are our goals? The Rewirement Project helps us go into some of those things. And for example, I remember I was doing a presentation and I asked people in the audience to give me their top 7, 8 goals. And guess what? And it was, I think, a room of 150 maybe. Everybody had the same goals. A lot of money, whatever that is, big house, travel, good health, world peace, take care of the kids, send their parents around the world. All those in similar categories. There were some oddities, but they most fell in that category. Here's the second question. And this is the one that really links up with why I moved into the Rewirement Project, is the question behind every goal is why. Because the reasons behind the goal are stronger than the goal itself. We've got to have a purpose. We got to answer the why question. Because, it's not that we might have a passion for it, but it's something that we care about. Passion for something and caring are 2 different things. Passion is a noun. Caring is a verb. We're not going to go around and passion around, but something that we deeply care about, is really important. So we got to answer the why question, which is what the Rewirement Project is all about. We got to answer the why not question, the why not now question, and the why not you question. You deserve, all of us, to really embrace whatever that is, what our reasons are. Mine is to make a difference. I love being a servant. I love knowing that I can sit at the table, knowing that I can make a difference. It just pulls my heartstring, and I think one of the first steps to rewirement or change is awareness. And the second step is acceptance. And we've got to own it and bring value to every hour. And there's a big difference between value, how we value ourselves. And let me give you a quick example, Greg. I interviewed someone many years ago for a job, 20 years in banking. Resume was impressive. Couldn't wait to meet this guy who was going to hire him. Then I interviewed him and I finally had 1 year experience just doing it 19 times. We get longevity. We have a tendency to think resume is the same, or length of time is the same as value. It isn't. There's some of us can take a shorter period of time in 2 years and bring 16 hours of value in an 8-hour day. The Rewirement Project is helping people sort of remove and become aware of those self-imposed barriers that we lose that we have an opportunity to bring them down and wind our neural pathways to be aware of the guardrails that are self-imposed that prevent us from moving forward. A lot of us, when I think about Rewirement, we're still tripping on the things that's behind us. And you can't move forward. Think about that. Tripping on the things that's already behind us. We're either living in the past or we're trying to project what's going to happen in the future. And in that journey, we discount the moment. So Rewirement Project is helping us rethink, retooling how we approach things, how we decision, so we get to quality decisioning as it relates to the things that's important to us.
All right, Sarah's got a question for you, DB. You ready?
Oh, let me fasten my seatbelt.
Buckle up.
I said, what it mainly is just, I'm just so excited and happy that you are on here today. Wonderful, great information. I think that it was so appropriate of you to be on with regards to, of course, it's in connection to BBA Against Hate in partnership with our weekly. And of course, with the BBA, we wanted to focus on how that really affects people in business and our business owners and what we have to do to keep progressing forward through it. Of course, we know of all the discriminatory practices and just the systemic things that continuously to knock us back when we keep taking 2 and 3 steps forward. What I love is the fact that also too, with your Rewirement company and the things that you're saying today, you're just talking about not focusing on the past and it's all the way that you think about things. But I can't pass up to say that we are living in an increasingly troubled world, and it just seems like it just keeps moving forward on the hate, on the discrimination, on keeping that divide across access to and making things equitable. What is any take on that in terms of how we deal with that increasing momentum of what we're seeing today and how we can deal with that?
I think it's a great question. And let me say it this way. Many of us know what's happening. First of all, I think life is one long day. I think we want things to happen right now. We want everything to be a light switch. That's not real. The way I choose to address the hate that I experience in the world is to better understand the self-hate that I have. I constantly have to look in the mirror because I can only control those things that I can control, one moment at a time. I wish I could change the political landscape, but that's impossible. I wish I could change a lot of things. So I have to change the way I approach and not let all the things that we see in the news define my moment. I understand the impact that it has. I'm sensitive to it. I'm concerned about the people that's impacted, whether it be in unemployment, whether it be lack of business, whether it be health issues, mental health, special needs. How we address it is a reflection of how we decision. I'm not going to let what I see, the hate that exists, define my opportunity to make a difference because I know I can make a different choice. Mentally, through the lens of Rewirement, those moments are like a grain of sand on the beach. And I have to make sure I see it that way, to take that moment, that this moment does not define the greatness of this country. This moment does not define the greatness and the opportunity of people of color. So part of it is how we decision. For example, Sarah, I've watched the BBA in the last 4 months. All of a sudden, none of that stopped you from improving your program. There's nothing that handcuffed your ability to sort of tell the story. There's nothing that handcuffed your ability to unite every organization in this city. There's so much buzz going on right now about the BBA. There's no invisible walls between you and the great work of the Urban League or the Brotherhood Crusade or the UNCF. You're not letting anything stop you from doing those things. So we've got to figure out how to be aware of it, but to abolish the kind of thinking and accepting the truth that we are good and we all have perspectives as individuals, and that we have to feel comfortable in our leadership and understand self-hate that we carry with us. You know, when those moments that really suppressed us. That's why I stood so proud to be a recipient, knowing that my ancestors never gave up. They had faith. They had hope. They knew that their ancestors and the people that followed them, and that's the way I have to look at it. I cannot I can't allow myself to feel the weight of everything that I see on TV. I don't even watch TV anymore. Anything I need to know, somebody tells. You know why? Because I am very purposeful in my agenda. And if I have to address hate one bite at a time, it's like how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Let me give you another story. I have two stories because I think you teed up something. First of all, I want to share this. I don't know if you've been to Australia, and people know in Australia what the national animal is. It's the kangaroo. In Australia, the military has a patch of the kangaroo on their sleeve. People think it's because it's the national animal. But here's the real reason. A kangaroo cannot walk backwards. It's symbolic of that we have to move forward and not let the ills of the past define us. So I never forgot that story. The second story that I think will prove this point about how we think about all of the negative that exists in our community is this. I remember seeing a film years ago, and it was a military film. It's a war. On one side, those in blue uniforms are fighting people in the red. And it was sort of a comedy, sort of. So somebody came with the idea, one of the generals, to put in a uniform, and half of it was blue and half of it was red. And he decided to get on his horse and walk down the middle of this war, these two red and blues fighting. The blue side, it was a film, saw the blue. The red saw the red. And they started to drop the weapons and just applaud the red. Because they saw what they had saw. When he got to the end of this journey, he said, this was a lot of fun. We were able to stop the war. So he turned around and started to go backwards. And of course, they picked their weapons again, because now the red saw blue and blue saw red. We can't go backwards. We know that the wars exist. We know the war on hate exists. But I think about, how do we manage that? One, we got to start with us as individuals. We got to understand our individual self-hate and things that holds us back. Second, we got to figure out how do we support each other as individuals to make sure that we can help each other overcome some of those self-imposed barriers, that understand that the priorities at the fifth level of commitment to do whatever it takes to support programs, small business, each other, to take advantage, become students about what the Vermont Slauson is doing with CDFI funds, or to give people access to, we need to unite. And when I look at this list of incredible people, some of you doing the same thing, is that we've got to start and not let the weight of those realities stop us from moving forward and being the best that we can possibly be. It's a time for us to support each other, because some of you are the light, a lot of us have to be electricity. So we can stand the light and kind of move forward. So anyway, that's where I think about it. Sarah, I'd love to spend some time with you at some point with you and your team. I shared that with you the other day. I'm more than happy to get us to push the envelope so we can be ready for what's coming, and that's an opportunity for us to grow business in different areas that are outside of the norm. And I'm happy to do that with you.
That is a definite.
Thank you very much for that question. Greg? Hello, Greg?
Yeah, it's actually Crystal, but
Great. Okay.
your
Can
mic
you hear me?
went. We hear you fine. It's just Crystal is looking to speak, but for some reason,
Crystal, Cynthia has a comment.
All right, I'm going to address Cynthia's comment, and I think there was a couple other comments in there. But I also want to say that, Darrell, you kind of covered it. Cynthia, your question was, how do we de-escalate a lot of the racist, Karen craziness out there, is I think we have to walk away, first of all, because those individuals don't define us as people. We know who we are. We know what we do. But we do need to rise up in our communities. We need to all work together. All of our organizations are working for the same common cause to help our small business community, our community, to change our economic status. Because without the economic status, we have no voice, we have no power, we can't make things, we can't make a difference. So if we don't start changing how we recycle our dollars, as Darrell says, making sure we're rising our dollars up. I put a couple comments in the chat. We spend $1.3 trillion, but it does not stay in our communities. It goes to everyone else's community. We make everyone else rich. We make us even poorer. I saw the same thing when I went to South Africa in November. We as Black people have to stand up and make us rise up to the top, and then make people respect us for who we are. If we don't respect each other, how do we expect them to respect us each other? If we are not keeping our dollars and changing our community, why in the world should they why should they be concerned about us? Dr. George Frazier said the other day, I was on a call with him and Dr. Kimbrough, and they both said, the great white hope is not coming to save us. We have to be the one to save us, and we have to make a difference at home. That's the first thing and then that will make everyone else respect us. But if we don't respect us, they're not going to respect us. That's
right.
Just my soapbox for recycling Black dollars.
And you're absolutely 1,000% right.
Yeah, I think you're right. Look, hate exists. I mean that it has for thousands of years. It's not going to go in my lifetime. It's just the way. And
It's not.
I always think about when we see a hate, there's a question of interpretation or intention. I own intention. I think about George Floyd. Now, and it was caught on videotape. Now, as an African American man, I have been pulled over my whole life because I always drove a nice car. I wanted a BMW. Back in the day, I had an afro, and I get pulled over because I fit the description, handcuffed, and I was a drug dealer. And I am a branch manager. I'm the honoree at the Beverly Wilshire, and I have on a black tuxedo. Somebody gets out of the car and hands me the keys. I mean, this stuff is real. I don't let those moments define me. I just observe the ignorance, and it's going to take the element of a commitment, to understand how we pursue justice with intention, which may lead to prevention. My folks are from the South, and does racism exist today? Yeah. What does it look like? You don't see white, Black bathrooms, but we know it exists. So now it's bias, unconscious bias, or every kind of ism. We know it exists, but I think that we have to be intent. We cannot be handicapped in terms of our pursuit to eradicate, to address, to acknowledge the things in our community. And not everything, even if it's lawful, we stop at awful. We need to make it lawful, or address things that it's part of the whole process in how we vote, how we address those that might have a solution, how we pull together a think tank to address issues that address injustice, prejudice, every kind of ism in ways that we've never seen before. And I think the community briefing is a platform to at least have these discussions, to move forward, identify great thought leaders that are specialists in some of these areas that we can mobilize, we can unite, and we can continue to make a difference and bring value to this community. The other side of the thing I would say also, for me at my age, I'm in the fourth quarter clearly, is that for me, happiness is the new wealth. That to me is something, so we want to make sure that we have work-life happiness and integration. We have to pause so we don't just react, that we learn how to respond. React or respond, the choice is yours.
Thank you very much, Darrell. Stephen, who's going to be here next week?
Next week, we have Betty Rudolph from the Federal Depository Corporation. You know, the FDIC is going to talk about the importance of minority institutions, specifically Black institutions nationwide. As Gerald mentioned, it's more than brick and mortar in the banking industry. You choose a minority bank, how can you support them? And of the 190 minority institutions, what are they doing and how can we support them? So tune in next week, Thursday, on the 26th for Betty Randolph.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. It's been Darrell, awesome. Man, we gotta have you come in every quarter so that we can stay inspired and stay on top of what we need to. I love the think tank idea. I've been talking about that for years to many of my friends when I'm on my soapbox, and I think that's how we confront some of this. So thank you. Your cousin is on Facebook saying good job, man, Calvin Brown.
Calvin Brown, that's my cousin. In fact, my sister Regina and Calvin talk all the time, and what a small world it is. And but I want to say thank you to you, Crystal, Sarah Harris, you know, and to all the Greg and Steve and all those that are responsible for this day. I truly am humbled, and I do hope I brought some value. And you guys can reach me at Darrell at THERewirementproject.com, TheRewirementproject.com. DARRELL.
All righty, and you guys can also follow them on LinkedIn. But what we want you to do at the community briefing is to go over to our newly set up YouTube channel, the community briefing. Now community briefing is standing on its own. And please, we need you to subscribe. We need to get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can start to monetize the channel and we can monetize the program. Also, any support to continue to keep this program moving forward. We have some amazing things on plan for this year. Outside events that outside of this hour, we're going to have a couple of panel type of platforms discussing some of this. And Darrell, we'd love to do something like this with you as well, where we actually have a physical in-person meet so that we can continue this conversation. It starts here. We make a change when we connect and we use all of our skill set to carry on the mission that our ancestors started. So we're moving into Black History Month in February, and I'm going to say this to you guys as we close, and I want to thank you all, everyone that's new. Please share and have them come back every Thursday at 11 a.m. To the community briefing. But here's the deal, guys. If our ancestors lived through the trauma of 400 years of enslavement, I know we can do something different than what we're doing today. We have far more than what they had. They had barely had shoes. We got too many shoes. So I know we can make a change and we can make a difference, and it can start here. We can be the example. And then we can make sure our children understand that, and we can make a change. Less in this decade, not let us go another 100 years, which would be 500 years, which is beyond what the Bible says that we were supposed to be enslaved. So let's make a change. Let's make a difference. And I want to thank you guys for supporting the community briefing, supporting our Black community. I know I'm speaking to the choir, to most of you, but now you guys take the choir, go out and make sure the other people are on the same page that we're on. You guys have a fantastic day. Please come back next week. I know I didn't get Alex real quick, and Yolande real quick. Yolande, I need to talk to you. I have a referral for you.
Okay. I just
Yolande, Alex first.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'll be really, really quick. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Nassif. I work in Council Member Nithya Raman's office. She's the LA City Council member for the 4th District. I subscribe to you all's newsletter and YouTube page as I was doing a little bit of research. So in partnership with Black in the Valley, if any of you are from the Valley or live in the Valley, you might be familiar, but in partnership with them, we're hosting a Black business mixer on February 23rd. It'll be in person from 4 to 6 p.m. February 23rd at Mardi Gras Tuesday in Sherman Oaks. We'll have a keynote speaker. Her name is Sonia Blake. She's a Black woman. She's the CEO of the Valley Economic Alliance. Yes, we've also invited Mayor Karen Bass, but if she can attend, she'll definitely be sending her economic policy team, as well as folks from the Economic Workforce Development Department. So I would love for any and all of you to show up and continue this conversation. It really fascinated me, Mr. Brown, Darrell. So thank you so much, everything you had to say. The Black dollar especially circulating, and I like the idea of not just having the brick and mortars, but really creating community. And by being a Black business owner, you all are really Black leaders in the community. So I appreciate this venue, and thank you for giving me the quick time. And I'll put my email and information in
And
the
Alex,
chat.
I live in the valley, so.
Oh, hey, okay.
Yeah. So
And,
let's-
All
and
right.
that, guys, is our future. This is our youth. We want to pass us on, because a lot of us is at that fourth quarter, but we need to support them so that they can carry on. So by all means, Alex, I put my information in chat. Please reach out to me and let me see if I can help with get the people out there as well.
Appreciate it.
Yolanda,
Thank
real
you.
quick. Yolanda, and then we're going to wrap up.
So I put it in the chat for you all, Darrell Brown. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 24 years old. I am now 60. I've always worked for myself, and I always recruit my people. So I am the recycler of the global Black pound, dollar, and Naira, because I have companies in all over the world. I put it in the chat. We are doing a Black Family Summit on Tuesday, the 31st of January at the California Endowment. It's only 100 spaces. I hope to see some of my Black businesses there. Sarah, thank you for promoting me in Sweet Life a year ago. I had an idea. 1 year later, I have 200 members of the National Association of African American Parent and Youth. Sarah took a gamble on a Black woman from Britain who she didn't know, but Angela convinced her to write that story, and 1 year later, we're there and growing. So I hope that I will see some of you at my family summit, where we're talking about legacy, wealth, health, economics, and education. Thank you, Crystal, for giving me that plug for 1 minute.
Awesome. And I want you on the business zone. Yolanda, real quick.
Yolanda, okay, thank you so much. And Yolanda, I did put something in the chat for you, and I'd like your information so that I can post it on my ITRN website. And I'd like for you to come on to my radio show to talk about the Black Family Summit. And Crystal, I do want you on to talk about the community briefing. And it's critical that we do, as Darrell Brown said, I'm having an event next Tuesday during my showtime. It will be 2 hours, and we're going to talk about this very issue. Dr. George Frazier is one of the panelists who will be with us next week. I've got 4 other people. I'd love to have Darrell Brown on because we're all of the very same mindset. And this is the condition of Black America, past, present, and the future. They are writing about us and we're not even reading it. And as Dr. George Frazier states frequently, rather all the time, not only are we in economic slavery, but we're enslaved and don't even know it. We're pretending like it doesn't even exist. It's time for that to be done with. It's over.
So true. The George is my guru. Thank you guys so much. I will actually take the chat and upload it. Once I edit the show, it'll be on the YouTube channel. I will make sure the chat is in the remarks, so you guys, for those of you that can't save it, but I will make sure I copied and pasted it all in. Okay. And this will be up in by Saturday.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Crystal. So I do want to talk to you. And I do want to talk to Mr. Darrell Brown so that he can get on with us next Tuesday.
All righty. All right, guys, go out and have a brilliant day and carry on the message. And I was at a Black Power meeting the other day. Black Power, people.
Black Power, that's right.
I was hanging out with the revolutionaries on Black.
Right.
I'm MLK Day, so I'm Black Power today.
That's right.
Hey, and light skin too.
Yeah, you still.
Black is all shades, Gregory, all shades.
Take care.
Guys.